Hello interwebs and welcome to my channel. So for this video, I just got done doing my Star Trek Picard book review of the book Last Best Hope. And I kind of realized as I was in the middle of all that I kind of wanted to do a quick video discussing my thoughts on, was Picard wrong for leaving Starfleet? And I just wanted to kind of put some thoughts out there. I don't really have a definitive answer to this question, but I wanted to get the ball rolling and see what everyone thought in the comments below about Picard's decision to leave Starfleet. That was really kind of fleshed out by this novel, but we've already, if you haven't read the novel, that's totally okay. You can easily partake in this discussion because enough of the pieces are there in the actual show for you to discuss this. So let's dive into it. So what we learned from the novel and the show is that the Federation began this effort to try to evacuate Romulans from Romulan space, and Picard was leading that effort. And slowly over the course of time, and this is what we kind of learned in the novel, the Federation kept having to make compromise after compromise, both due to political pressures from within the Federation. Basically, there was a lot of people that even wanted to secede from the Federation because they thought that the Federation was being overtaxed and overburdened by the Romulan refugees, which had its own racial undertones to it. If you read the novel, there's definitely some racist undertones against the Romulans within that sentiment, but the sentiment as a whole is not necessarily completely without merit. We see that Starfleet also was dealing with other pressures, that they had finite amount of resources. They, had to deal with the Romulan government that was not necessarily fully forthcoming in wanting to help them help themselves. So it was just a lot of frustrating situations for Starfleet to be placed in, and a lot of burden to help a group of people that wasn't necessarily their own. And so we come to the end decision by Picard, where he's gotten to this point where he realized that Starfleet is not the Starfleet he believed in. They've compromised too much. And the synthetic attack being the sort of final straw, because once the synthetic attack happened, Mars, Utopia, Planitia was destroyed, and the Federation did not have enough ability to build enough ships to save all the Romulans. And so because they couldn't save everyone, they decide that they're going to save no one, and they completely divest of the situation, and Picard resigns right there, basically gives them an ultimatum, and they say no, and he resigns because he feels that they've just given up on their values. There's two pieces of this situation that I kind of want to look at. And one that I feel like I have a definitive answer on, and the other one I feel like I have one as well, but I'm not entirely sure. The first thing I want to discuss within this is, was it the Federation's duty to take care of the Romulans? Was it the Federation's duty to want to help them out and to save them and try and save as many of them as possible, as Picard states? Picard says, hey, we need to save as many Romulans as possible. That's our ideals. That's what we stand up for. And this is the one that I have a really firm grasp on. I believe yes. I believe that the Federation does have the moral imperative to save lives. And the reason I say that is, and I'm going to have to tie it to modern day politics, because this situation is just so mired in modern day politics. That's why I love this discussion so much, is because it's basically this idea of a worldwide view, of a globalist point of view versus a nationalist point of view. There's a very loaded term in there that this book does address, and I really loved it for addressing that. But the core of that argument comes down to, if we sort of try to remove the racism and all that fun stuff from it, which you really can't, it's sort of intrinsically tied to it. But the core idea is, do we take care of our citizens first? Do we take care of, U.S. citizens first? Or do we take care of people in general? As someone who's leftist, as someone who firmly believes in Star Trek's values, I believe the answer is yes. You have an imperative to help as many people as possible who come to you as long as you can. I'm going to have to talk about modern day politics. I mean, for example, there are refugees who come to the United States and the U.S. border at Mexico, and they're fleeing horrific situations in their country. And when they get to the border, they apply for refugee status, and they have to prove that they're, if they go back to their home country, they'll be killed and things like that. And we have actual statistical proof that, the current administration here in the United States sends a lot of these refugees back, has been denying them refugee status because of the current administration's policies. And we have actual statistics that a lot of these people, when they get sent back to their countries, I believe, I'll have to find the actual statistic. I don't want to just willingly just randomly put it out there, but it was a large statistic that sending these people back does get them killed. We have a moral imperative to help these people. They are coming to our door. They're asking for our help. We should be helping them. And that is something that I deeply, deeply believe. And I know that this is going to make this video, basically the comments in this video are probably going to be destroyed. I'm kind of worried about it. I hope that we can have an actual nuanced and deep discussion on this. But, I want to talk about it because it is so prescient in a lot of ways. I feel like the Federation had a moral imperative to help people. I believe that we should not help somebody just because they're not Federation citizens. If they're not Americans, we just should be helping people. There is a worthwhile argument, I guess, to be made for if you help everyone, then you can help no one. But I don't know. I just, as someone who believes in unifying and thinking about the group as opposed to, ourselves, that if we have the capability to help people, we should be doing that. And so I think the Federation did have a moral imperative to help everybody in the situation and do everything they can, even if it meant inconveniencing Federation citizens. But obviously that situation is incredibly nuanced, as the book and the show and real life have all doled out. So it's not an easy one-to-one answer, and I don't expect it to be a one-to-one answer. But often I feel, as again, the book points out, the show points out, and real life points out, a lot of the reason that we choose not to help refugees is because it's also wrapped up in racism and xenophobia and saying, these people aren't like me, I don't want to help them, I want to help me first. And I think the book in Star Trek Picard is showing that in a really intriguing way, using Romulans to kind of have that discussion within the actual text of the show. Like I said, it's a much more nuanced situation, but it's one that I kind of want to just put out there because, we as a society haven't figured out the answer to all of this. So I don't think I have, I'm able to say one way or the other. What I will say, though, is that I definitely believe that in both real life and in the world of Star Trek, it is a moral imperative of people to help the group that is in need of help. I believe that firmly 100%, but I am open to having a discussion on it, and I hope we can engender a good discussion in the comments below. And then the other thing, too, the last little piece of this discussion that I want to kind of touch upon, was Picard right himself for leaving Starfleet? Clearly, Starfleet made, in my opinion, the wrong choice. The understandable choice for the situation, but the wrong choice to say, we're not helping the Romulans. And Picard basically says, all right, well, I'm retiring then. I'm resigning from Starfleet in protest of that decision. And we get the sense in the show especially, a little less in the book because the book was kind of just showing the situation, whereas the show, obviously, the TV show, Picard, shows us the aftermath of all the decision, of how much, Picard really took that ethos to heart. When he resigned from everything. His friendships, the people around him, like Raffi, for example, and Elnor, and the Romulan refugees. He basically said, I can't handle this anymore. There's nothing more I can do, and I'm out. Peace. I'm done helping. I'm going to go back to my chateau and just sip and drink wine for forever. And that also reads to me as the wrong choice. I mean, clearly we're seeing that play out in the show, that he really hurt a lot of people by not continuing to push. Now, the argument could be made that maybe he couldn't have done enough in Starfleet anymore, that he, resigning from Starfleet was the right choice in the sense that, Starfleet wasn't going to do anything. So resigning in protest at least shows them that there's consequences to that choice of losing him. You could argue that maybe he should have stayed and tried to push more from within the system, but maybe there was just nothing more he could do in that situation. But does that mean that he should have stopped completely? I mean, the man is, he was powerful. It's not to say he would have been as powerful without Starfleet, but he did have ties and he did have diplomatic strengths that he could have utilized to maybe help the Federation and help the Romulans in different ways. Maybe not as much as he would have liked, maybe not as much as he would have hoped, and maybe it would mean he would have even had more blood on his hands than he actually does, but maybe he should have. Maybe it would have been a futile gesture, maybe it wouldn't have been enough, but it would have been more than what he did. And so I'm curious if you think that, Picard had a moral right to just sit out and not do more. I believe, again, I think Picard should have, maybe resigning from Starfleet was the right choice, but he should have done more. He could have done more. If that was something he truly believed, and he shows numerous times that he believed that Starfleet could have done more, then he himself should have done more. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, morally, he just made the same decision Starfleet did. I mean, maybe he can have the moral high ground in saying he resigned and quit, but ultimately he did just as much as Starfleet did, which was nothing. So maybe Picard is just as much in the wrong as Starfleet is, but he gets to have the moral high ground. And ultimately, having the moral high ground ultimately means nothing if it doesn't help people. That's something that I really, really, truly believe, that you can try and say, I'm right, and I did the right thing, and I'm standing for the right values. That may all be true, but it all comes down to, how can you help people? That's what always is forefront in my mind. How do we help as many people as possible? And I may always, for me, I may fail at that sometimes. I may not be a great ally at all times to different communities. I may not be able to give everything that I can in a situation, but I try my best to take into account others' thoughts, feelings, to try and work for others, to fight for as many causes as I can, with knowing that I am one person. There's only so much I can do, and it's not going to be enough. I can never do enough, but I can try and do as much as I can. And I think that that's really important, to always try to do what you can. But, maybe other people have different thoughts on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. I think this was an interesting discussion. It was just something I kind of had to rant and get off my mind. I know it wasn't sort of a direct through line, but I really just wanted to have a discussion on it and talk it out with all of you. So I'd love to hear what you thought in the comments below. And if you want more discussions like these on Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Picard reviews on Doctor Who, and different geek topics and things like that, please give my channel a subscribe. And if you want to help make this channel even better, if you want to help me financially, please consider giving to my Patreon or my PayPal. Every little bit helps me pay the bills, helps me buy new equipment, helps me pay for an upcoming surgery that I have. It really means a lot to me. But regardless of if you subscribe or give to my Patreon, I'm just really happy that you stopped by, and I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. And special thanks to my commander level and above Patreons: Stefan Schuhart, BBD, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Michael McGee, Lal Lindley, Wellington Marcus, Munir Amlani, Mari Nekar, and Marika Kuyechin.